Welcome back, and we will be doing the answers to our last class. Now, first one, Aristophanes' play. It's a comedy, The Frogs. So, answer is B, 1B. And 2 is it's a debate between a mock parody, a mock debate between Aeschylus and Euripides, two of the greatest tragic writers. So, the writer of Greek comedies, comedic plays, Aristophanes, parodying Aeschylus and Euripides, two of the greatest tragedians. So, answer is 2C. The Frogs was published, or actually not published exactly, but produced and staged before Athens was defeated in one of the wars. The prestige or the self-esteem was of the people of the Athens was at a low ebb. The worst elements were in control of the city, as in the play of that Aristophanes has written. They were in the control of the so-called underworld, people who live below, outside the boundaries. Now, while many of the best citizens were in exile or disempowered, marginalized. Such was the tragic background against which Aristophanes wrote the comic Frogs. You must also remember its setting is the underworld, and the preoccupation with literary criticism. All this is tied exactly or directly to comments on the immediate social political condition. Now, I have written here our term called parabasis. Parabasis is in Greek comedy is the address of the chorus. You all know that in the Greek plays, the writers were very fond of using the chorus, choric element. The chorus would move from one direction to another, strophe, antistrophe, and they would comment on the play, they would sing songs, perhaps invoking the gods, praising the king, and also commenting on the play, the action. So, here in Parabasis, the chorus urges the audience directly to save their city by recalling the political exiles, that is the citizens of Athens. Remember, as I just told you, they were defeated in a war. And the idea was also to place the control of internal affairs and all in the hands of the older and worthier families. So, that is what the Parabasis did. So, in case you get a question like that, Parabasis, its function, and in Aristophanes' plays, then this is what invoking, they were like invoking patriotism and pride in Athens. And you have to remember, or you should also know that this entire arc of patriotism of the Parabasis was so much admired by the Athenians, the old families, that the Frogs won a very distinguished and prestigious first prize. The performance was asked to be repeated. I mean, I am talking about those days, those ancient days. We did not have repeat performances, but here the performance was repeated, and Aristophanes was crowned with Athena's, that is the goddess, a goddess's sacred olive. That was, let us assume it's one of the greatest awards or prizes that was given in those days. So, sacred olive. Aristophanes was honored by conferring the sacred olive on him. Number 3 is C, Oscar Wilde. The judge passed this sentence for Oscar Wilde. Now, to us, and why? What was the crime that he has committed? The crime was of so-called sodomy and practicing homosexuality. At Wilde's first criminal trial, he was cross-examined extensively on something which is called love that dare not speak its name. Okay, homosexuality was a term that couldn't even, a word that couldn't even be uttered. and that you should remember that this practice prevailed for a very long time. Even in Lillian Hellman's The Children's Hours, nowhere will you find the term homosexuality uttered ever, okay, or even once. In Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, words like this they were just not accepted. It was not allowed. So even in Oscar Wilde's times, this kind of love, affection, was termed as love that dare not speak its name. Wilde served his 2 years and then spent the last 3 years of his life in exile. Wilde belongs to a group of a very distinguished elite group of writers, poets, thinkers who had done a lot of work while in prison and in exile. You must read Writers in Exile or Writers who were sentenced to prison. Okay, look these things up and you will find, because this is one of the favorite pet questions of many examiners. Wilde died at the age of 45 and was buried in Paris. Number 4 is B. Edith Wharton's autobiography is called A Backward Glance. Okay, and there are lots of reviews and texts, parts of excerpts are available on the net, so you can look it up. And number 5 is A. The Age of Innocence, which is a novel by Edith Wharton. The question was, the author of A Backward Glance is also the author of one of these, so that the answer is The Age of Innocence. Number 6 is Stephen Gosson, the author of School of Abuse. So that lengthy title that we had just seen, it's by Stephen Gosson. Answer is C, the author of School of Abuse, where poetry is referred to as something that is propagates or encourages immorality. Number 7 is D, dedicated to Sir Philip Sidney. Stephen Gosson dedicated School of Abuse, where he criticizes poetry, and it is dedicated to Sir Philip Sidney. Number 8 is D, Ulysses by James Joyce. And number A is George Lucas, who comments extensively on literature and realism. George Lucas came from Hungary, so that is 10 is question 10, answer is D. Number 11 is B, I Am Old, yeah, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Okay, so the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot, one of the greatest poems ever. I urge you to go through it, it's very important. And number 12, where you see the parody, okay, so that is A, David Lodge, okay, and The British Museum is Falling Down, that's the title, and that's a play on London Bridge is falling down, the British Museum is falling down, okay, David Lodge, answer A. Number 13 is C, the book parody is what? The stream of consciousness, the inward thinking, the words and the expressions and the language that goes, the thoughts that go on in the minds of the character, and we are often shown that by exclamation, punctuation, over excessive use of punctuation, ellipses, capitalization. So that's the thought process of the characters. Number 14 is C, literary critic. David Lodge is a literary critic. Apart from being an eminent novelist, he is also a literary critic, well respected academic. He has taught at a regular position in University of Birmingham in England, where he also teaches frequently even now. He has published numerous works of literary criticism alongside his novels. He wrote the book on Henry James, author, which is like a novel on Henry James. He has also done some screenwriting and playwriting. Number 15 is C. Federico Garcia Lorca. And apart from being an eminent poet, Lorca was also a playwright. So 16 is D. Lorca lived between 1899 to 1936. In 1929, he traveled and studied in the US and came strongly under the influence of Salvador Dali. Who was Salvador Dali? What was he known for? Surrealism. Remember, Dali was a painter, an artist, and he is known for his practice of surrealism art, and that is one of the modernist arts, aspects of the modern art. Along with Dali, along with Louis Buñuel, had also collaborated on several surrealistic kinds of films. That is also something that you should know. Now, Lorca came under the influence of surrealism. Okay, this is an experience which he records in his book Poet in New York. Lorca's early plays are comedy fantasies. They are light, they are impressionistic, steeped in the tradition of puppet theatre, and also Commedia dell'Arte. Commedia dell'Arte. You need to have an extra M here. COMMEDIA dell'Arte. Okay, which means which was like a kind of farce and exaggerated kind of comedy that was practiced particularly in Italy and Spain. One of the best known works by Lorca of this tradition is The Shoemaker's Marvelous Wife. Lorca then also went on to write plays, and some of his tragic plays apart from his comedies. So his tragic plays are Blood Wedding, Yerma, look at the spelling, Yerma, and The House of Bernardo Alba. And now if you are more interested, and if Lorca is an important writer, poet, and if you think that you need to know more about these things, then you can read up or look up on works of Lorca, collected volumes of Lorca. You can also look up the net. Number 17 is C. Milan Kundera. Now, Milan Kundera is the answer, and the excerpt is taken from Book of Laughter and Forgetting. That is the name of the book, title of the book. So, Milan Kundera's Book of Laughter and Forgetting. The theme of this book is fragility of memory. And what kind of memory? He talks about the loss of past, how nations, how countries are forced to lose their past, historical or personal. And he explores how losing the past and memory undermines the identity of people and nations. Lorca's concerns are revisions of history. Names of cities are changed. Names of buildings and important landmarks are changed. Names of streets are changed. What are we doing? We are erasing certain important landmarks in history. Okay, so and we are erasing memories of the past. That's what his concern is. So that's what the Book of Laughter and Forgetting is all about. Number 18 is B, The Joke. That is also another work by Milan Kundera. Also, of course, he is best known for his The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Number 19 is B, Magic Realism. And number 20 is A. The comment made on Beckett is by Sean O'Casey, the Irish playwright. So, number 20 is A. Number 21 is C, Semiotics, and the passage is taken from The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. Umberto Eco, as you should know, is an Italian semiotician. He practices semiotics. He lived between 1880 to 1965. Eco's seminal works are A Theory of Semiotics, The Role of the Reader, Semiotics and Philosophy of Language, and on beauty, on ugliness. Those are his works. He also wrote an essay called Towards a Semiotic Inquiry into the Television Message, which is an important study of how viewers actually read and understand what they see. Eco has famously used the term model reader, which means that the author and the reader, they share and understand the same books or the same quotes. See, being a semiotician, he is extremely interested in quotes. We should also know Roland Barthes and his practice of quotes, his 5 quotes, and then how Umberto Eco is also interested in reading of semiotics and its specific quotes. So, in a model reader, the idea is that the author and reader, they share and understand the same quotes, linguistic quotes. That is what we mean. A model reader for Eco is inscribed in the text and is not, strictly speaking, external to the text. One of his greatest contribution, of course, he is a semiotician, also a great novelist, but he has also made a contribution towards the reader response theory, which is contained in his book The Role of the Reader, which asserts that every reception of work, so those interested in reception theory and study, so this is also you should be looking at, that every reception of a work of art is both an interpretation and a performance of the work, which means that in every reception the work invites a fresh perspective, and we should understand that interpretations are infinitive or infinite. For instance, when you read a work like The Great Gatsby, in a poor nation it will be interpreted as something else. When you read The Great Gatsby in a first world country, in a highly developed country, then the interpretation of the work would be the same. It would be very different. So, different sets of people receive a text in a different way. So, numerous people, numerous interpretations. Number 22 is A, Eugene Ionesco. That is his comment, or that is his quotation. And number 23 is D, Swinburne, Algernon Charles Swinburne. He is one of the foremost names associated with the theory of arts for art's sake and aestheticism. He wrote poems and ballads in 1866, which clearly display his preoccupation with self-flagellation, self-inflicting of pains like masochism and paganism. The book, as expected, was severely criticized and panned when it was first released. However, now it is acknowledged that the book contains some of the finest poems, Dolores and The Garden of Proserpine. So, you should look up poem and ballads, and perhaps some of the poems like Dolores and The Garden of Proserpine. In 1867, Swinburne met someone called Giuseppe Mazzini from Italy, one of the patriots Mazzini. Okay, and the poetry or the collection Songs Before Sunrise, which was published in 87, is principally concerned with the theme of political liberty, which is influenced by Giuseppe Mazzini's thoughts. Number 24 is D, Roland Barthes. Okay, so that is he is the one who identified 5 quotes while analyzing Honoré de Balzac's Cerason in the essay S by Z, S upon Z. And number 24 is B, Jonathan Culler. So that's his quotation from The Pursuit of Science. Number 26 is B, Albert Camus, And number 27 is existentialism, the theory, philosophy that Camus was most concerned with. Number 28 is B, Betty Friedan, the author of The Feminine Mystique. And number 29 is D, Aubrey Beardsley, who did the illustration for Oscar Wilde's play Salome. Number 30 is C, Apology for Poetry by Philip Sidney, so C, which was a response to Stephen Gausson's The School of Abuse. So, we have just seen The School of Abuse dedicated to Philip Sidney, and Philip Sidney wrote a very famous response called Apology for Poetry, which bears the influence of Plato's, when Aristotle responded to Plato's attack on poets. Okay, so number 30 is C. Number 31 is B, Love in the Time of Cholera, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And number 32 is C, the literary device that Garcia Marquez is most closely associated with, magic realism. Number 33 is B, which is Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce. And number 34, The Handmaid's Tale, is a title which honors Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. So, the answer is C. Number 35, Emma and Charles are immortal characters from Gustave Flaubert's Madame Bovary. Answer is A. And number 36, C. It's realism. You should remember Flaubert is most closely related, associated with the theme of or the practice of realism, along with some of the greatest Russian masters, particularly Leo Tolstoy, and also in England George Eliot. So, they are realists, they practice something called realist verisimilitude, slice of life. So, those are the terms that are associated with people like Flaubert, Honoré de Balzac, George Eliot and Leo Tolstoy. Number 37 is Stephen B, which is who is a character from Ishiguro's Remains of the Day, Kazuo Ishiguro's Remains of the Day. Number 38 is C. The novel is known for unreliable narration. We never know whether Stephen remembers his past accurately, or perhaps he is making up or giving the events his own personal touch. And the author of The Remains of the Day is also the author of Never Let Me Go. So, number 39 is D, another great work by Ishiguro. Number 40 is C, Pathiracy, meta-narratives. So, all these concepts are given by Jean Lyotard. One of the most famous distinctions in the post-modern thought is given to us by Jean-Francois Lyotard and his concept of grand narratives, petty narratives. Grand narratives are discussions, debates on Christianity, Marxism and Enlightenment that attempt to provide a framework or response for everything. According to Lyotard, such narratives follow a movement towards a time of equality and justice. After the last judgment, the revolution or the scientific conquest of nature, injustice, unreason and evil will end. That is what was believed by the believers of grand narratives. Lyotard's position is that the contemporary worldview is governed by petty or little narratives. Contemporary Western discourse is unstable, fragmented, dispersed and does not appropriate a worldview at all. That is what Lyotard means by the idea of grand narratives and petty narratives. Little narratives present local explanations of individual events or phenomenon, but do not claim to know anything. So, it is a very postmodernist thought, instability of meaning and also fragmentation of experience. Number 41 is C, Bertolt Brecht. Okay, unhappy is the land that needs a hero. Those are the lines taken from Galileo. Number 42 is A, and the lines and the quotes are from Sorrows of Young Werther. And Goethe is associated with the practice of Romanticism. He is associated with German Romanticism. 43 is C. So, we just talked about Bertolt Brecht, and I gave a reference to his play Galileo. I think it's about time that we familiar or get familiar with Bertolt Brecht, one of the greatest playwrights ever, and also an extremely innovative German playwright. He was also a theatre director, theoretician, and influential in the realm of political playwriting. He has given us a unique style of acting and playwriting that is called the epic theatre. Now, epic theatre aims to disrupt something called realism. Realism, as we have just seen, we were talking about George Eliot and Leo Tolstoy and Balzac and Flaubert. Now, what is realism? Realism is verisimilitude. I see it, I feel it, it happens in real life, it is a slice of life. That is how we talk about it. Now, Brecht aimed to provide the audience with ways of looking at reality, which is called bourgeois reality, as unnatural. These are unnatural and unreal things, and in order to understand all this, he wanted to alienate. So, that is the term he gave, alienate or estrange the audience. The idea is to question the world which is largely created by those in authority, the church, the capitalists, the big businesses, the police state. And Brecht's idea was to question this world and the society these people controlled and sustained. In another terms, he encouraged the audience, or actually forced them to think. Often he used the term that shed tears from the brain. You generally shed tears from your heart. Don't feel but think. His epic theatre, as I have written here, epic theatre is not the epic that you have just learnt about in Iliad and Odyssey. So, that is not the epic that Brecht is interested in. Brecht's idea of an epic theatre is to understand the purpose of a play, which is not to provide simplistic entertainment or imitation of reality. According to Brecht, ideas should be presented and invite audience to judge characters, not merely mimic reality or people. His idea was to represent opposing sides of argument, the Marxist dialectics that we often call. He says that we should always, the audience should always be aware that they are indeed watching a play. They shouldn't get too immersed in the play. You see, that is what great practitioners like Aristotle taught us, that a play or tragedy should lead to catharsis of emotion. People should get so much involved that at the end it leads to catharsis. That is what most cinema also does, especially melodramatic cinema. Bollywood as well as Hollywood, they are notorious for creating a sort of cathartic cinema. People should get too involved, but European cinema, European theatre, they urged to question, okay, and to think, to keep a distance. So, dissociation, okay, detachment, estrangement, those are the concepts that are used here, that are thrown about here. Brecht also gives us the concept of alienation effect. Audience should be kept at an emotional distance from the action. They shouldn't get immersed in whatever is happening on the stage. He also gives us another term called defamiliarization. So, the defamiliarization effect is that we know that such kinds of things happen, but we are looking at them from a different perspective now. So, a mother is generally represented as an all-sacrificing and all self-effacing human being or entity. But in Brecht, a mother can also be ruthless and exploitative and selfish and greedy and materialistic, something that traditional notions of motherhood don't allow us to, or don't encourage us to think. But then Brecht asks us to think about the other side also. He makes us question, so makes the familiar defamiliar by presenting them in another and different light. So making familiar strange, show everything in fresh and unfamiliar light, give or offer a different perspective. That's what Brecht does. So alienation in cinema is also a practice. People like Michael Henke from Sweden, who has directed Funny Games, or even earlier we had people like Godard making Breathless, or Bergman doing Persona. So using various cinematographic and editing devices such as long shots, jump cuts, etc., they showed us that cinema can also practice alienation. Now epic play, coming back to epic play of Brecht, it follows a story. Generally it follows a story that is familiar to audience. It could be a fable, historical event, etc. It is episodic in nature, and all the episodes seem to be disconnected. However, Brecht was very clear that he wanted open-ended montage of scenes. Scenes should be, so if you read Galileo, there are several scenes that are open-ended. You don't know why they are there at all. Example, there is a street scene in Galileo where a street performer just starts dancing and distributing pamphlets about Galileo's theories of the revolutionary theory of that it's the earth that revolves around the sun, and not the existing belief that it was the sun that revolved around the earth. So Galileo challenged this notion and is distributed pamphlets. So in the street scene in Galileo, we find this happening, and what is happening, and why are the street singers dancing and sort of creating a mask? It's a very episodic in nature. It's a very episodic kind of a scene in the entire play. It seems to be disconnected and it's open-ended. Many a time in many of Brechtian plays we find non-naturalistic and non-chronological sequences happening without restriction of time, place or formal state or formal plot. Stage for theatre and his stage for Brecht and his followers was a place for discussion and debate, intellectual debate. Audiences were presented with a social or political topic and they were asked to think. Sometimes audiences would be directly questioned or addressed to. Stage was usually left bare, so you won't find the heavily decorated stage and machinery, and sometimes they expose the stage machinery as well, the sound, okay, the microphone, the camera and the lights, all these things would be just put out for all to see. That the idea was to create a sense of distance, that look, this is you're watching a play, this is not real, but think about what is happening here. Epic theatre also resorted to changing scale of properties used. So skyscrapers would be used as table, for instance, and then there was epic music, which was fairly discordant. It was not the melodious sound of music or the musicals that we've generally come across when we think music. It was a vital ingredient, and one of the two of his most frequent collaborators were Kurt Weill and Paul Dessau. Kurt Weill and Paul Dessau. Those were the collaborators. Kurt Weill, Paul Dessau. These were the musicians who frequently collaborated with Brecht for his epic theatre. Brecht also gives us the term called smoker's theatre, that is audience could come, relax and smoke. What he said was that one tribute that we can pay the audience is to treat them as intelligent beings. It is wrong to treat people as simpletons when they are grown up at the age 17. I appeal to the reason, and that's what Brecht was extremely concerned about. There should be reason. I appeal to the reason. I would like you to look at this slide here and how epic drama, Brechtian epic theatre, is different from conventional dramatic form. Now look at this slide. The stage embodies an event, the stage narrates an event. The stage draws the spectator into an event. In epic form, the stage makes him an observer. In dramatic form, the stage consumes his capacity for action. In epic theatre, the audience is forced to think, reason, and therefore the theatre awakens his capacity for action. In dramatic form, the audience is allowed to have emotions. In the epic theatre, the audience is demanded of decisions and reason. In dramatic form, an audience is provided with experience. In epic form, the audience is provided with knowledge. The spectator is drawn into the plot, the spectator plays opposite the plot. In dramatic form, suggestion is used. In epic form, arguments are used. Feelings are preserved, feelings are propelled into perceptions. You have to look at various perceptions. Man is assumed to be known, man is the object of the inquiry. Man is unalterable, man is alterable and altering, always changing, inconsistency. Okay, so debunking the supremacy of man. Suspense about the outcome, suspense about the progress. In dramatic form, one scene exists for another. In epic form, each scene is episodic, exists for itself. There is a linear chronological development. In epic form, you move in circles, often move in circles and in curves. The world as it is, verisimilitude. The world as it becomes, okay, changes, alters. Dramatic form urges us to think what man ought to do, and epic form, man is a weakling, what he is forced to do. Dramatic form appeals to instincts, epic form celebrates motivations. Dramatic form tells us that thinking determines being, and epic form says that social being determines thinking. Man is a product of his class, has the upbringing, okay, and you are as good as what you think. So that's what Brecht tells us. You may not agree with it. Before ending, I would like to guide you towards this film, excellent film starring Topol as Galileo, Life of Galileo. The complete film is available on YouTube. So thank you very much. We'll meet soon for our next class.